Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Stoller. Welcome to the program, Matt.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Sorry, we're having some post-hurricane related difficulties, but thank you for your patience. So, uh,
Absolutely unacceptable.
yes, I understand. Well, the world of
I'm just kidding.
pre-recorded radio and
It's fine.
podcasting. There is no.
It's amazing.
Go ahead. Sorry. All right, so you've written this piece in Salon, The Progressive Case Against Obama. For those people who haven't had an opportunity to see it, just lay out what your piece is about.
So there's two basic arguments. One is that under Barack Obama, and this is not necessarily causal, although I think it is, under Barack Obama, economic inequality has increased to levels that are higher than those under George Bush. And the economy that he's shaped has is essentially a one that is about resource extraction. So America is turning into a petro state because of the policy that Barack Obama has pursued. And this policy framework had two components. One was to reflate assets held by the wealthy, and the second was to not reflate assets held by the middle class, which is mostly home equities, so the foreclosure crisis. And so that's the first argument, that these bad things happened to America, and it was because of Barack Obama's policies. The second part of the argument is that one should not support Barack Obama because one should recognize that the key moments of policy leverage, which is really what we should care about as citizens, is how our government governs, are not actually always about elections. They are increasingly about how to respond to crises. And so we should focus on building networks of people who are intellectually and politically reliable, intellectually and politically consistent, and then when crises happen, which we just saw one with Sandy, to have these networks jump out and activate and demand action around the policy ideas that we want. So, for instance, after 9/11, George Bush said, no shopping. And there was no response from liberals, but neoconservatives were able to use that moment to change the constitutional order, launch a bunch of wars, et cetera, et cetera. And after the financial crisis, liberals didn't do anything and had no response. And so the Bob Rubinites were able to restructure the economy in this very oligarchical fashion. So we need to recognize that the dynamic is one of crises, and that supporting politicians who implement policies that are against our interests works against that strategy of having reliable political and intellectual networks.
Okay, and now, so I don't want to spend too much time on the first part of the argument because, I think clearly we have continued inequality, and in fact, coming out of the recession to the extent that we have, and that I think is even an arguable proposition, but to the extent that we have come out of the recession, it is clear that there were opportunities for President Obama, putting aside the fact and acknowledging on some level that he was obstructed in certain areas. There were clearly certain areas where he wasn't obstructed. At the very least, there was money in TARP, which could have gone to homeowners, which could have maybe not. I don't think it's quite possible to have made people whole in terms of an aggregate equity because we had a real estate bubble. But he certainly could have, without, the money was there, he certainly could have had his administration direct more relief directly to homeowners rather than continually feeding the banks, essentially, and hoping that I don't. It's hard to know exactly what the intent was, but we know at the very least that it was to foam the runways for the banks. And I guess the thinking goes, and hopefully they will then spread largesse to the common folk, as it were. That didn't quite work out that way, and it seems slightly ridiculous to assume that the banks would have operated in that fashion. But so leaving aside for a moment I mean, do you agree with my analysis there? I mean, like you say, it's arguable as to whether or not President Obama, his policies have led to a continuation of these income disparities. But I think it's inarguable that there weren't other things he could have done which could have at least lessened it.
Yeah. So under George Bush, 65 cents of every dollar went to the top 1% in terms of the income growth of the economy. Under Barack Obama, that number increased to 93 cents of every dollar. So in the economic recovery, nearly all the gains went to the top 1%, which was not true under Bush, and it was less true under Clinton, and so going back and whatnot. What you have to understand is that this was a policy choice. It's not that he didn't do enough. It's that he did plenty. And there were discretionary choices that he made and his people made that were important in terms of crafting the society that we have. And these include not prosecuting anyone on Wall Street, whipping aggressively for TARP, forcing a 50-state settlement on the foreclosure crisis, explicitly not addressing the foreclosure crisis and lying to the public about foreclosure mitigation programs, and appointing Ben Bernanke. And so what you see, and the Fannie and Freddie bailouts, et cetera, and so forth, what you've seen is that essentially what Obama has done, and Bush started it, but Obama solidified it, is that he has entrenched a two-tiered society where if you are of a certain economic strata, you have officially supercharged political and property rights. And if you are middle class, you have property rights to the extent that the powerful want to give them to you. That's why the robo-signing scandal, where millions of documents were falsified and there were millions of cases of fraud on the court, no one was ever prosecuted. Because what's happened is that Barack Obama has transformed our society into one where the middle class doesn't actually have rights except to the extent that the powerful want to give them to that. And that's a pretty profound transformation. I think we have to recognize that as a transformation and as an explicit one and as something that Barack Obama intended to do, and say, okay, now that he did this, what is our response? Instead of sort of the kind of, oh, well, he could have done more, but no, this guy had a policy agenda and he enacted it. And what do we do? And this is the shape of the country because of that.
Okay, and so and we also, I think it's also fair to mention too that the context in which coming out of a recession, it is not necessarily, and there were policy choices. It is not like you say. There's not necessarily a causal connection here because we are coming out of a massive financial crisis, and I think certainly the income growth stuff could have been in some way mitigated. However, it's not necessarily causal, but I think there's definitely a good argument there. So
no, I don't agree with that. I think what I was saying before in terms of the causation is that some of the arguments have been, oh, it's not causal. But in fact, the way that you come out of a recession is highly determinative of the shape of the country as it comes out of a recession. The policies that are implemented. And so what happened in 2008 is Barack Obama, essentially took office during the transition or slightly before in terms of his legislative priorities. And the country's banking system and economy was flat on its back. And everybody looked at him and said, how are we going to come out of this? What is the shape of our economy? And Barack Obama said, we are going to bail out the auto industry. We are going to bail out the banks. We are going to do a whole series of things, some of which were good, like the bailouts of the auto industry. I think those were smart. But there were important policy choices that were made that dictated the shape of the recovery. And Franklin Delano Roosevelt, faced with a similar situation, made different choices. And so the shape of the recovery was far more egalitarian. And so it's how you deal with excessive amounts of debt really does matter. And Barack Obama chose to deal with it in certain ways, and FDR chose to deal with it in different ways. And so I do think it's absolutely 100% causal. And so does Barack Obama, which is why he's bragging about the auto bailouts.
Right. I mean, I'm just going by what you had said at the beginning of this interview, which was that it's not necessarily causal. But be that as it may, I mean, all right. If you want to argue that there's a one.
No, I wasn't saying that. What I was saying is the argument from people, the response to the piece has been, oh, well, this isn't necessarily causal, and I was trying to lay out, I was trying to lay out the argument clearly, and some of the some of the points. The indisputable fact is that inequality has increased.
Right.
Now, my argument is about causality.
Okay.
So anyway,
all right.
please,
So fair
continue.
enough. And so it's the second part of the argument is that we need to form a more progressive or a better, I guess, progressive response in anticipation of the next crisis, because those are obviously the window. Those represent the greatest windows for opportunity for genuine change that would egalitarian, progressive change that we seek. And here, and to a large extent, I very much agree with that. I'm not sure I have any issue with that. The real question is to what extent voting for a third party, and let's just focus this conversation in the context of swing states, because I think it's pretty clear. And this is, I should say, this is a conversation that we've had on this program for months and months and months. It is really clear that I think that if you're in a safely blue state, there's much more latitude, and the implications of your vote there are frankly not as relevant. So let's narrow this to in a swing state. What is to be gained by voting for a third party in the context of a swing state?
Well, I mean, I think the argument from my perspective is that, you're taking a big risk with either Obama or Romney. And under Obama, I mean, I think the best phrase is from Black Agenda Report. He's not the lesser of two evils. He's just the more effective evil. He's very good at, for instance, cutting Social Security, which is why he was able to cut the payroll tax and defund Social Security without any opposition from Democrats. And I don't think that a Republican could have done that. And so the argument the argument against Mitt Romney is pretty obvious, that he would be a very bad conservative president, that he could attack Iran, that he could do some very terrible things. Given that he has a relatively moderate track record in Massachusetts, but he's surrounded by some very scary people, it's impossible to know what the guy would actually do in office. I look at him and I say he's a Republican establishment guy. But who knows? The argument with Barack Obama is that he has already indicated what he is going to do. And he has said many times that he wants to drill for more oil and that he wants to cut entitlements. He offered a deal to John Boehner to cut entitlements. He wants to go after what is left of the New Deal state. And the reason that one should feel uncomfortable about that is because Barack Obama has shown that he is very effective at putting Democrats to sleep, and that when the public actually constrains the president doesn't always have as much freedom of action to do as much damage as he might want to do. And I think that the public will be more aroused against Mitt Romney than they will against Barack Obama. Now, whether that will produce better policy as a whole, I don't know. I'm not sure if Mitt Romney or Barack Obama would be a worse president. But I do think that it's important, and this is why one should not support Barack Obama. I do think it's important for us to say, as the public, we do not accept the policymaking of either party at this point, and of either, frankly, not necessarily party, but of Barack Obama or Mitt Romney. We think that both of them are malevolent, and it is important to say that. It's important to say that as an individual. It's important to say that as a set of people who belong to institutions, membership organizations, and so forth. That is the only thing that will constrain these guys from doing terrible things to us.
Now, all right, I want to work backwards here, because I don't view voting, particularly in the context of in those elections in a swing state, as a mode of expression. I think that it has real world implications. In my mind, it's a very pragmatic act. So the implications. I mean, you stated in the piece that you don't think any of these third party candidates have a chance to win. I agree with that assessment. So effectively, when you're saying vote for a third party, and you're talking to progressives, right? You're basically saying, for those of you who are contemplating voting for Obama, the actual impact in terms of the election is you should basically give a half vote to Romney. I mean, is that a fair, do you think that's just a fair assessment of that call, of the implications of that call?
No, I don't. I think that nobody owns your vote. And I don't think that if there's a lot of people who might choose not to vote. The alternative, the third party might just be not voting. I mean, 100 million people don't vote every presidential election cycle. But I also think that voting is relatively unimportant in terms of social change. And if you want to start with real social change, then, why isn't there a massive protest right now to do something about climate change all over the country? If we had an effective set of environmental institutions, certainly the energy is there, although it may be difficult to do it in the Northeast in terms of logistics, but the energy is there, but the institutional leadership isn't.
But
and the point of voting for a third party is not to have a third party win, because that isn't going to happen this time. It's more a self-identification and practice for standing up against the establishment. Because these guys, when the pressure is on, like during TARP or 9/11 or any other moment, these guys just say, if you don't do what we tell you to do, the sky will fall and everything will go, into terrible places. And that is exactly what they are saying with this election. It's exactly the message they're delivering.
Vote
for Barack Obama. And they're not even just saying in swing states. They're saying everywhere, because he might have a popular
hold on for 1 second.
Loss.
But the fact is, let's now. The title of your piece is The Progressive Case Against Obama. You're speaking to people, you're not speaking to people who have no plans to vote. You're speaking to people who have plans to vote for Obama. I mean, why else write this piece? To the extent that you're making an argument, we can get a sense of who your audience is. Your audience is those people who are planning to vote for Obama. If they don't vote, or they vote for a third-party candidate who we agree has no chance to win, they are increasing the likelihood. The one thing that we can be sure of, this is a mathematical equation. The one thing they're increasing the likelihood is that we will have Mitt Romney as president. I don't think I'm making a controversial argument here. I'm following the lines of what you're saying. That is the implication. You'll own that part of it.
I'm not.
We can argue if it's also self-identification and the value of that afterwards. But let's just agree with what we know are the real world implications. Maybe Romney, and we can have this argument too as to whether or not Romney will be worse than Obama and for whom. But let's at least agree on the implications of what you're suggesting here. And I'm not saying that these are, this is wild. I think it's certainly within the bounds of a rational argument, but it will contribute to Mitt Romney's ability to become president.
What's your obsession with this?
What's my obsession with it?
Yeah, why are you trying to say?
Because I'm just saying
is,
that you take an action. And I just want to be able to move forward in this conversation.
Look, Sam,
so I'm not obsessed with it. I'm doing an interview on your piece.
There are tremendous risks to both Mitt Romney and Barack Obama as president. All right. Now, I think that those risks need to be acknowledged. And I don't think people are acknowledging the risk of another term of Barack Obama.
I can assure you,
I've spent
to convey that. Months, Matt, on the show.
I'm sorry, but don't reduce it. Don't reduce the piece to I want to throw this election to Mitt Romney.
I'm not doing that, but I'm not doing that.
And you don't have data on who read the piece and their political choices, and neither do I. And I think that it's really problematic to reduce this
Well, no,
to,
I'm not
well, I just
reducing
want
it to
Mitt
that.
Romney to be president.
I'm trying
and I don't
to
think
just
that's
do this
fair.
methodically, Matt. I'm just trying to make. You're asking people. You're arguing for people to do action A, and all I'm talking about so that we can move forward.
No, I'm not, Sam. I'm not. I'm arguing for people to do a lot of things.
Well,
I'm arguing for
but
people
but
to
we
say
can
no
get
to
to
the
B, C,
establishment.
and D. But if you want to start, and if you want to say this is action D, that's fine. But in the context of the election, you're asking people, and okay, we don't have data on who read the piece.
No, look,
maybe,
here's an action that I think people should take. I think they should go to both Barack Obama and Mitt Romney and say, what are you going to do about the obvious climate catastrophes that are heading our way? And if one of them gives an answer that you think makes sense, and I don't mean denying climate change, and I don't mean acknowledging it, but saying that you're going to drill for oil and coal anyway. I mean a real answer. Then vote for that person. Or go to them and say, hey, there's a strike at Walmart, and it's probably the most fundamental economic organization in our country, or maybe even in the world. What do you think about that? And if they give an answer, then vote for that person. I'm arguing for people to do protest. I'm arguing for people to do direct action. I'm arguing for people to have the political and intellectual integrity to want power for social justice. And that's my fundamental argument. I don't particularly care who wins in this election. It doesn't matter. And so if you throw and I think a lot of people feel the way that I do. And I'm not sure that those people were going to vote anyway. So maybe my piece was being read by people who were not, choosing to vote. Who knows?
Well, no, okay, we don't know who read your piece. I don't have the stats. You don't have the stats. They don't exist. We can't possibly know. And maybe it was, I don't know why you have to entitle it a progressive case against Obama. Why not a conservative case against Obama? Why not? I mean, the point is, if we're not going to acknowledge, I guess the piece is meaningless if people were already going to vote for a third party, or if they weren't going to vote at all, the piece is meaningless. All I'm trying to say, and I want to get to these other aspects of it. All I'm trying to say is that let's do it this way. Let's make it a hypothetical, and I'm putting out the caveat here. There's a hypothetical for someone who was planning to vote for President Obama, and they read your piece and they decide, and they live in Ohio, let's say, or wherever, a swing state, like the swing states you mentioned, and they vote for a third party, or they don't vote at all. Will you at least acknowledge in that hypothetical situation, maybe there's no one like that who would read your piece, but in that hypothetical situation, it does increase the chances of Mitt Romney winning. This is simply math. I mean, I just want to this is something that, in the context of me, I'm not obsessed with this. I'm only obsessed with it because it only appears that way because I assume this would be an answer that's a relatively quick response. If you don't, it's a different answer. If you think there's no difference between the two, it doesn't matter. This question's not loaded in any way. I mean, you sense that I think there's.
Okay, let's just move on.
All right. Well, mathematically, I think this is indisputable, but and maybe it's not that relevant.
In the scenario that you've laid out, let's say that there is an undecided voter who is the deciding vote, and they have been thinking about voting for Obama, and they read this piece and they say, "I'm going to vote third party." In that case, it would affect the election.
Okay.
Alternatively, they could be a Romney voter, and they could decide to vote third party. And that also could affect the election.
Right. I don't know why they would be listening for the progressive case against Obama and decide to vote for a third party. I mean, you don't even outline their third party. Because
I believe that my arguments are persuasive, and I think that they're persuasive to people who are on the right, and they're persuasive to people on the left.
Okay, this argument seems to be directed at the left, but that's fine. Okay, that's fine. So now let's just take this one by one. In terms of a difference between Obama and Romney, to the extent that we can know what either one of them is going to do, you seem in the piece to be sure, you seem to think that Romney doesn't care about choice as an issue, about abortion rights as an issue. That may or may not be the case, but that's not relevant. The real question is, what would a Romney administration do? Now, it seems to me that there is a difference, and I think you and I actually had a Twitter exchange about this probably a year ago at this point. For me, a lot of it comes down to the Supreme Court. You seem to think that there's not going to be a difference in terms of the possible appointments to the Supreme Court. Let me hear your perspective on that. Is that a fair characterization?
No, I don't think that. I don't think that. I think that it's more likely that Obama will appoint justices which have some modicum of social justice in their in the way that they think about the world. And I think that's I don't think that that's nothing.
Right. Okay. I think we can agree that Romney is far more likely to appoint justices who would be willing to curtail a woman's right to choose when it comes to that. Far more likely to appoint justices who might find that DOMA is constitutional, issues like that, right? And more religion in the classroom, et cetera, et cetera. We can agree on that.
I mean, I think that the Supreme Court, in my opinion, is gone. I think it's 5-4 now, and so Romney could make it 6-3 or 7-2, but I think that liberals have to sort of begin to think about strategies to get around the Supreme Court at this point.
I think that's true too, but we also have two of that 5 block who are in their mid-70s. Now, it's possible Scalia could live forever. Who knows? But 6-3 is also probably a generation.
We don't. I mean, I just don't. I mean, what the court has done over the last 20 years. We need new strategies. I mean, there's not time for a traditional reformist. Oh, let's wait 20 years and maybe we can get a 5-4 majority on the court. We just don't have time for that. So I don't think it really matters that much.
We're not talking 20 years.
I think there are definitely some significant points to that. But I mean, let's also not forget that that Barack Obama entrenched the Hyde Amendment in his in Obamacare. And so if you talk about a woman's right to choose, it's certainly more likely that the Republicans will use that issue because that's what their base wants. But Barack Obama believes in the right to choose only for people who can afford it. And that to me is immoral. And I think that we should recognize that. And I think we should be as outraged about the Hyde Amendment as we are about, the possibility of overturning Roe v. Wade.
Well,
because to me, access to abortion is a fundamental right. But that means that access to abortion is a fundamental right. You can't just say, oh, well, young women shouldn't have Plan B because I'm a father and I have 2 girls. And so I know what that means. Barack Obama said that. And so you can't pretend like this guy is some great warrior for the pro-choice cause. He's not.
I'm not making a case for President Obama in a vacuum here. I'm making a case for voting for President Obama in the context of one of 2 guys are going to be president. 1 or 2 guys are going to shape the future. Now, it's not 20 years when we talk to the Supreme Court. There's no way.
No, wait. You said 1 or 2 guys are going to be president. That's true. 1 of 2 guys are going to shape the future. That's not true. Okay, this is where people keep missing the argument. If you protest, if you get out there and you organize and you take things away from the elite that they want, they will respond. Okay. Barack Obama and Mitt Romney do not have to shape our future. And that is fundamentally what I'm saying.
All right.
You
I would
believe
agree with that as
two
well.
candidates who have the same economic strategy, essentially, with some minor differences, that one of those 2 people is going to be the dictator of this country, then just write it off.
Well,
and just get out of politics.
Matt,
but you don't understand social
that,
change.
no, listen, I agree with that. We're talking in the context of I do think that there's going to be a big difference, frankly, between Obama Supreme Court and Romney Supreme Court. I do think 6-3 makes a huge difference.
But
because
look, there's also going to be a difference between an anti-war movement under Mitt Romney and an anti-war movement under Barack Obama. I mean, you can't. These things do matter. How the people respond does matter. And I think what we've seen over the last 4 years is that Democrats are simply unwilling to hold Barack Obama accountable. That's just
I understand holding accountable, but this, and I was hoping to spend the bulk of this interview to talk about the social movements and the protests, but we need to go through this part of it because it's the bulk of your piece and it's what's talked about. I think that it's very unlikely that a guy like Scalia and Kennedy are going to be serving until they're well into their 90s. I think they're going to go. Now, it could be 15 years, but that's going to make a big difference if Ruth Bader Ginsburg or Breyer is replaced by someone who is 50 years old. It's going to be a difference between 15 years and probably 35 years. Now, with that said, I think that there's a clear difference when it comes to issues of a woman's right to choose, of these social issues. I also think that while the difference is not as stark, we still have, just in this term alone, I think it was, Knox v. SEIU, which severely hurt the ability for labor unions to organize. Now, yes, I know we may be long past the time where labor unions are an important force in this country, but nevertheless, that was a 5-4 decision. There was an AT&T case out in California about access to the courts, essentially for tort remedies. That was a 5-4 decision. There are other obviously Citizens United. There is a difference with the Supreme Court, and I think that to a certain extent, if nothing else, we're on the precipice of a timeline of the potential to flip back to a 5-4 that is more progressive, not progressive per se, but more towards that end of the spectrum. And that, it seems to me...
But Sam, we don't have time for this, okay? Like, 3,000 people died with Hurricane Katrina. New York, subways just got flooded. We don't have time for this kind of reformist, incrementalist nonsense. We need a real resistance movement. We need actual challenges to our institutions. We can't play little games like saying, 9 people in robes and two candidates are going to determine our entire future. I simply reject that way of thinking about it, and I reject it for a very simple reason. I don't want to die in a massive climate catastrophe. And if you don't want to die in a massive climate catastrophe, then you should start thinking about what that means.
How
and
will
the real
President Mitt Romney help us in terms of that urgency? I mean, you say...
Neither will Barack Obama. Come on. That is the point of this piece. We have more investment going into tar sands and mining under Barack Obama than we did under George Bush. Come on, Sam.
I understand, but I'm not talking about George Bush. And I'm not talking about whether or not we should have social movements. I'm just talking about when people go to cast their vote, if it makes no difference whatsoever. I didn't
say it makes no difference. I said it's impossible to know who will be a better president.
Well,
right? But I wanted to make the case
we do know
against Barack Obama on progressive grounds.
If Romney and Obama will be equally bad in terms of addressing climate change. I didn't say they'd be
equally bad. I said that it's impossible to know who would be better. There are good reasons to vote for Barack Obama. There are also good reasons to vote for Mitt Romney.
There are good reasons to vote for Mitt Romney?
I happen to come down on the third-party side because I didn't see anything in Barack Obama and Mitt Romney's platform or track record that suggested that they would be a president I would want to vote.
But I think we have to start taking responsibility. Then let's get to this, Matt. What is the value of voting for someone you know can't win?
The value of a vote, I mean, first of all, most votes don't matter. I mean, we know that. So what is the point of voting is really what you're asking.
No,
and to me, the point of voting...
I'm not asking that. I'm asking for what is the value of voting for someone you know can't win? If voting doesn't matter, then people should just vote for Barack Obama if they want to. They should just vote. I mean, it doesn't... Then this whole conversation is moot. Why write this piece now? Why not write it after the election?
Well, because I wanted people to hear... First of all, I just don't... Again, I think that voting, is a relatively unimportant civic act. But to the extent that you're going to do it, I think you should use it to dedicate yourself to a principled stand on how to transform society. And that can then lead to other things that do make a difference. Direct action, social change,
let's get to this dedicating
and actually getting into government and trying to govern.
I want to get to this thing about dedicating yourself to social action. So in other words, if I vote for President Obama, somehow I am not dedicating myself to agitating against policies of his that I don't like. Somehow I'm not dedicating myself to fighting for the diminishment of fossil fuels. I mean, what if I just say
No,
that
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I think I have. I mean, look, if you vote for in the piece, I said one of the things I said. If you're willing to say Barack Obama has imposed a far more authoritarian structure on our culture, and he's done all sorts of things, including murdering people with drone strikes and enriching the oligarchs. But I think he is a better choice than Mitt Romney. Fine, go ahead and do that. What I really object to, because I think that if you do that, and you're willing to acknowledge the reality of what this guy has done, then I think you can move forward and say we need to genuinely put pressure on him to change
That's exactly
direction
where I've
or
been
on the
at for
political
months.
elites. My problem is most people who vote for Barack Obama don't actually think that. Most people say, oh, he's lesser of two evils, oh, it's the system, et cetera, et cetera. And those aren't necessarily untrue,
Well, wait a
but they're also unwilling to actually acknowledge that this guy has a policy agenda that he's implemented. And that was my goal. Is I want people to understand that this guy had a policy agenda, that he implemented it, and that we didn't resist that policy agenda, and we should have.
Well, I
And
mean, that's the
worked.
thing. I mean, I agree with that assessment. For me, it is a decision of lesser of two evils.
And I called for a primary against Obama
I did
about,
too.
I don't know, 12,
On your
15 months
show.
ago. And I was told the same thing I'm told today. You're a nader. You want Mitt Romney or the Republicans to win. I've worked on primaries in the Democratic Party for a long time, as you know, and the same arguments are always trotted out, not just for why we should elect Democrats over Republicans, but why we should elect conservative Democrats over liberal Democrats in primaries. So I don't accept those arguments then, and I don't accept them now. And fundamentally, I think social change comes from the people. And that's what this piece was about. We have to really acknowledge that and understand what it means. And if you vote third party, it means you do understand what it means. And it means you have dedicated yourself to this concept.
That's the part that I have a problem with. Like, look, I also called for a primary challenge against Obama. It was apparently no one wanted to step up, and I think there was a lot of reasons for that. And I agree with you that any calls, there's a lot of reasons why I think people didn't. There was no one there, essentially, to primary Obama, not the least of which because he had such strong liberal support. And I am, on some level, also very sympathetic to Glenn Ford's argument. We had him on this program a couple of months ago to talk about that piece. But I also, while I agree that social movements are of paramount importance, I think that we make a mistake, and it is very facile to say that there's no difference and no implications as to who will be the president in January. Now, I think the argument
I didn't say that. I said that the risk of Barack Obama is significant, and that the risk of Mitt Romney is also significant. And it's impossible to know who will be a better president.
Do you see the risk of a Romney to be more significant or less significant? Now, you're going to say, I don't know. But Matt, okay, I look at a Republican Party. I don't see, there's nothing about Mitt Romney. We're both from Massachusetts. We know this guy. There's nothing about Mitt Romney that leads me to believe that if he gets a bill saying whatever it is, reinstate DOMA or make it within or whether or not it comes time to appoint a right-wing judge, that he won't do it. And I think
let's go to the data. Because ultimately, when you're talking about policy, what you're really talking about is what the shape of the country should be. So I saw some really interesting data by a guy named Joe Eversberger, who sent it to me today. The deunionization of the country, so the change in the share of unionized workforce, was the country deunionized most aggressively during the Reagan administration since 1972, if you look at presidents. But the second fastest rate of deunionization took place under Clinton. The third took place under Obama. Okay, and the fourth took place under George W. Bush. So the same is true of the average share of income going to the top 1%. The biggest increase was under Reagan, but the second biggest was under Clinton, and the third was under Obama. The fourth was under George Bush. So if you're looking at the larger macro trends and the output of these policies, I don't think it's fair to say that the Republicans are always worse. Sometimes the Democrats are worse. And I think we have to actually start to understand why that is.
Do you think that it's, let's talk about Medicaid, for instance. I mean, in terms of paying for people's time in nursing homes. I mean,
Can you respond to that? I mean, I just gave you some data. I mean, can you respond to the actual data?
to the data
Because
that
you
we've
bring up
had,
Medicaid, I'll respond to
had-
Medicaid, but I actually
we've
just
had
said the
diminished.
deunionization was faster under Clinton than it was under George W. Bush. It was faster under Obama than it was under George W. Bush. It was faster under Reagan than everyone. And the same thing is true of income of growth of the rich as a share of income. Fastest under Reagan, second fastest under Clinton, third fastest under Obama, fourth fastest under George W.
Well, I mean,
What do you think that means? I mean, what does that mean?
Well, I definitely think it means that policy choices in the main are dictated by the rich, and that parties don't make much of a difference at that level. I mean, I've spent every day for the past 2 years saying that in one theme or another, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm willing to I guess, enhance the ability of those people to sort of underfund poor people, to take away people's health care. I mean, I have been talking ad nauseum about my belief that President Obama is going to cut Social Security through cost of living increases come January or February. I'm not blind to these realities, but I'm also not blind to the fact that there are, even if it's just marginal, we're talking about hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who are better off under an Obama administration than a Romney administration, to the extent that we can know in any way what they're going to be able to do. I mean, that's the reality. I know that.
All I'm saying is that if
that
you look at the data,
100,000
under Obama,
Iraqi
1.6
civilians.
million more women are now in poverty than they were when he entered office.
Well, but come
And
on,
if you
Matt.
look
We had
at
a massive
predatory
financial
lending,
crisis.
If you look at predatory lending, and if you look at foreclosures, although the data on foreclosures isn't totally clear yet, but this disproportionately impacts women. The fastest growing group in
Matt,
prisons
you're totally
is
discounting
women.
the financial crisis.
But you can't just say, "Oh, women's rights are about choice."
I'm not just saying
You
that.
have to look at it in a broader context. And frankly, I think Obama is as likely to cut Medicaid as Mitt Romney is.
Well, I don't.
So
I mean,
I don't
that's
really see.
It's not.
And
in the policy
and Obama
prescriptions.
extended Medicaid not because he wanted to cover the poor, but because Walmart wanted it, so that they would have to pay less in benefits. They've been complaining about benefits for a long time. So I mean, it's like there are larger factors here.
Obama would made it was easier for Obama to extend this Medicaid because of his party, and to the extent that he has an electoral base, that's what they wanted, and that's also going to influence Mitt Romney's decisions.
So except that George Bush, had a massive prescription drug benefit that he implemented, Medicare Part D, which helped a lot of seniors, even though it was done in an incredibly corrupt manner. It happened under the Republicans, under a Republican Congress, House and Senate, and George Bush, because of the business interests behind it.
Right. I mean, let me ask you this: when it comes time to fund the cleanup, the disaster relief for this hurricane, for instance, and that's going to come up sometime in January or February, right? And President Obama is going to say, "We need this cash," and the Republicans in the House are going to say, "Not unless we cut somewhere else." Where do you think there would be even any fight to this in terms of Romney, or do you think that Romney would a first act would be to rebut the Republican-held Congress, or no?
It's hard to say because let's look at the data. Okay, so under Katrina, right, George Bush essentially there wasn't a lot of really effective management or good funding to go into fixing what happened in New Orleans, and that was true under George Bush, but then it was also true under Barack Obama. I mean, he He didn't really fix it, even though it was something that he campaigned on. So I think it would be hard to say that
When
Barack
we look
Obama
at the past two times
would
where the
be more
president has
likely
gone to
to
Congress, when
run
President
better
Obama did
cleanup
go to Congress looking for
operations
additional funds,
are you
additional relief
speaking? It's
funds,
hard to.
both times the Republican Congress said, nuh-uh, not unless we offset this. When we talk about the droughts.
But look, I mean, the Republican Congress did that because Barack Obama is president, and Barack Obama, he believes in fiscal austerity. So who knows? He might say, yeah, it's a great opportunity for me to cut more. I mean, he brags about spending cuts. So like maybe Mitt Romney has said don't cut spending during a recession. I'm not saying that Mitt Romney agrees with it. And I'm not saying that Barack Obama is more likely to be a worse president on this matter. I just don't know. And I think that there's evidence in both areas. But I also want to point out that we're leaving out, again, we keep leaving out the people themselves. And I think that the question really is, what can we do to ensure that repair happens in an effective and sustainable manner? In New York and in the Northeast, we have to harden the infrastructure for climate change.
Right.
We have to do a crash course on carbon reduction. And that will not happen under either Mitt Romney or Barack Obama without extreme advocacy from institutional groups who right now are too busy working to reelect President Obama than deal with the issues they're tasked with, which is climate change. And I think that's just undeniable.
I would agree with that. And I think to a certain extent, my lesson under George Bush, when, I speak as someone who was a Nader voter in 2000, or, vote swapped from New York. What are you going to do? But that my experience is that unlike under President Obama, the lines of what you talk about, really dedicated, people who are genuinely dedicated, institutions that are genuinely dedicated to progressive change, are completely clouded. That it seems to me that under a Mitt Romney presidency, what happens is that all that energy is simply in furtherance of partisan goals, and there's no real growth of the left. And that's, I think to the extent that we want to make this election simply about a theory of change that comes from the ground up, I mean, I think that gets very short shrift. I mean, for the 8 years that I was, or 4 years, I guess, 5 years that I was professionally agitating against George Bush, there was a lot of people who I would speak to and interview who would never say it's okay to cut Social Security. And to a certain extent, I think a lot of those differences become more clear, and the size of the problem and the nature of the problem, I think, is far more clear, frankly, under a Democratic administration than a Republican one, because I don't think, frankly, that we were any closer to change after George Bush. I think we're actually, in some respects, far closer now, because it's far easier to see where the people's incentives and agendas line up.
Okay.
What's your sense of that?
Well, I guess I look at the question slightly differently. And there's a political theorist that I really like, named Tom Ferguson, who talks about the golden rule theory of politics, which is, and American politics is not really about voters; it's about stakeholders and investors who fund elections and fund think tanks and whatnot, and those business and labor coalitions are quite meaningful in terms of determining policy. And so, and it's not that the public is always irrelevant. They are sometimes, but they're just disorganized. And so what I'm trying to figure out is, how do you create new stakeholders or move existing stakeholders to a coalition that it wants to actually deal with climate change in a serious way? And I don't know how to do that. But I think it has to start with recognizing that the Obama and Romney coalitions are actually basically the same coalition of fossil fuel interests and finance, and that's our opposition. And we have to figure out a way to craft a new set of stakeholders, or bring stakeholders from within the corporate world and the labor world towards a new coalition which works for a more sustainable global economic order.
And my argument is that I think it becomes clearer, I think, that the Obama administration and the Romney administration represent those same people under an Obama administration, it seems to me. Because 6 months into a Romney administration, we're just talking about the Republicans being the party of the oligarchies. And we forget, I mean, that, you know, to the extent of a theory of change, I mean, I think there's as much to be said about that as your argument. I just don't see why the citizenry, as you suggest in your piece, is going to get better under Romney, or it's not. It's just going to be basically more sort of just partisanship. I mean, not partisan in the sense that we're polarized, but it's going to be more. The attacks on Romney are going to be less about the issues and more about the Democrats.
I guess I just don't. Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't have an answer. I would say that I think it's important for individuals and groups who are dissatisfied with the direction of the country to make that clear and begin to organize a coalition that is opposed to the existing direction. And so I think that one way of making that clear, at least to yourself, is to not vote for either of the two political parties. But if you vote for one of them and you also say, I'm going to organize and, you know, aggressively advocate at moments like this during, say, the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy for a new direction, then that's good too. That's, I guess, the basic, that's the basic idea behind the piece. Is just look at the situation honestly. There is a strong case to be made against Barack Obama and his policy framework.
Well, I think we've come to a point of agreement now, and I appreciate your taking the time. And it's definitely.
But let me ask you this: I want to ask a question to you, Sam,
please,
if you don't mind, which is, why is this election so important to you? I mean, it's so, like, you're so emotional about the votes and whether one vote could really matters. I mean, where is this kind of enormous, feeling of importance around this election coming from?
Well, I mean, I think you're overstating my emotion in this. I mean, I'm interviewing you about this piece. Yesterday, my interview was about how food has become financialized, which had nothing to do about the election. But I mean, I do think that there are real implications for people in terms of the outcome of this election, and most of those implications, in my mind, are centered around the Supreme Court. I think that there's very strong arguments that, in terms of real-world suffering, that we're going to see more of it under Romney than we would under President Obama. I think there's a real reason to believe that President Romney would be more likely to get us into a full-fledged war. This is not being blind at all to to President Obama's expanding drone programs. I don't like to get into the business of weighing, which loss of life is worse. But I think that, I witnessed George Bush lead us into a war that was illegal and displaced 4 million people and killed, at the very least, several 100,000 innocent civilians. And So I do think that there are implications here. Do I think it's the end all be all? No. And, my program, what I talk about for 90 minutes a day over the past 2 years has reflected that. But, today we had on you who had this piece that a lot of people are talking about. And so I don't know that I don't know if you've characterized my emotions about this. I also, I'm a radio host. So when I talk about anything, I try and make it dramatic and exciting so that people will continue to listen. But I don't think this is the end all be all. I think this is just the beginning of basically waging a very strong defensive fight against President Obama. But I think that it's one that there's more opportunity for leverage under a President Obama than under a President Romney.
Okay. Those are all reasonable answers.
Thank you. All right, folks. Matt Stoller, I appreciate your coming on, buddy. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And that dude, Russell Banks, should give you more time back on the show.
Russell Brand.
Russell Brand should give you more time on the show.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity here.
Oh, okay. Well,
Um,
there you go.
yeah.
All right. Thanks for coming on.